Good afternoon. My name is Helen Sung, and we're so pleased that you're joining us for the National Jazz Museum in Harlem's Jazz on the Brain. Today's program we're calling the Improvising Brain, and the inspiration behind this series is my experience as the inaugural Jazz Artist in Residence at Columbia University's Zuckerman Institute. And for each program, we have a wonderful guest scientist who will help us just unpack and explore a little bit how we experience and engage with music and what happens in our brains when that happens. So I want to introduce our guest scientist for today, Dr. Rai Sen, and maybe you want to tell them about the lab you're working in.
Yes.
And your
First of all, it's such an honor to be here, also like on the eve of International Jazz Day, because I'm a huge jazz enthusiast. But I know very little about theory, but it just intrigues me, how you do it. So I am, I'm a postdoc in the lab of Richard Axel in Zuckerman Institute, and I work with social behaviors. So I'm interested in understanding how the brain mediates social behaviors, and particularly I'm interested in understanding how animals recognize each other and how they learn about each other through social interactions. And like how does the brain figure out who we are to each other, and what we are in the group we live in, and how we relate to all the individuals in the group. And so the brain, so what does this really mean, right? How do we learn about each other? And I think it boils down to daily interactions, which are completely improvised and unscripted. And the brain has to somehow track the history of all interactions with a given individual to kind of form a sense of who that individual is, how they make us feel, how we relate to them, and store that information somewhere to anticipate future behaviors and adjust our interactions,
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I love that you bring in the word improvisation, because that's a key part of jazz. And I'm going to maybe spring something new on you guys that you might not be as familiar with, because April is a very special month. As Rai said, tomorrow is International Jazz Day, because April is Jazz Appreciation Month. And this year's special 2022, it's also the great bassist Charles Mingus's centennial year. This is his centennial month too, and his birth date is April 22nd, which fell on Earth Day this year. Very apropos, he was such an earthy and a real, raw kind of musician. And I thought it'd be fitting to play some music by Charles Mingus, and you might not be as familiar, so maybe pay attention to just how you might listen to the song, because when we learn something new, our brain is firing and doing all that stuff that the brain does. But I won't talk about that. I'll just play this song. I'm going to play two pieces. The first one I think will really signify just Charles Mingus. His music was so honest. He said things probably most people wouldn't say, like how he titled this first song, which is a slow blues, which I love the blues. There's nothing like that for just getting the angst out. And then he wrote a lot of music to honor his fellow musicians. And so the first song is, "Oh Lord, don't let them drop that atomic bomb on me." And the second song is "Dizzy Moods" in honor of the great Dizzy Gillespie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll let that percolate in the brain a little bit when we might come back to it later in the program. But let's talk a bit about your research in terms of the societies that you form and how that works.
Yes. So I work not with humans, but with mice. So just like humans, many social organisms can recognize each other and can understand the societal structure, but we have limited understanding of what mediates that, like the underlying neuronal circuits. So I work with mice, and what I do is I group house them. And
how many to a group house?
4 to 5.
Oh, that's
So it's
kind
a
of a nice
small,
deal.
kind of cozy. And then over time, male mice form very stable hierarchies. But it takes them a little bit of time to form these stable hierarchies. So what I try to do is record from the brain as the animals get to know each other and learn about each other till a stable memory forms. Until a stable hierarchy forms where every animal has a rank which is unique and they can tell each other's ranks. So there are 2 parts that I'm interested in. I think the one part is how do they figure out who they are as the hierarchies form. Like even in the course of one interaction, they kind of gauge each other and figure out who they are to each other. And then over time, how does that develop into this very stable understanding of each other, where they can almost anticipate how they're going to behave in certain situations?
Well, you showed me this really interesting slide of, is that the only way they determine each other's rank, or is it just one of the ways? Like,
okay. Yeah, so what Helen is talking about is this experiment, this behavioral assay that I have. I put 2 mice in a tube, and it's a very popular assay to, like, a robust way to quantify ranks. You put 2 mice in a tube, and the more dominant one pushes the subordinate one out. And initially, it takes a while for them to figure out their relationship. And over time, they can form hierarchies. This is just one way to kind of reveal the hierarchy that already exists in the cage, but also probably reinforce the hierarchy.
Right.
So what I try to do is give them this life history where they meet each other in a tube every day for 7 to 10 days and see how, if I can look at the brain and see the changing relationship in the brain, and some inkling of whether we can look in the brain and look in the brain of one animal and see if there's representation of the other's action.
In the neural activity.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get them to go into the tube in the first place?
Yeah, we just hold them.
Oh, you kind of push.
Carefully in the tube, and then they just meet in the middle, and they kind of push and engage each other. They might resist, so
well,
there's push back.
Let's take a look at this video, and why don't you describe what's kind of going on? So
in the video, what happens is first they meet in the middle of the tube, and then the left mouse, I think, they're still, and the left mouse starts to pushing, and the right mouse pushes back after a while, and then figures out, in the end, it just gives up because he knows he's going to be bullied. So he just retreats from the tube, and over time, if you repeat these experiments many times, after learning, if you put the most dominant and the subordinate in the tube, they just, they don't even interact. The more subordinate one just retreats immediately. So
like in the second slide that you showed. Yeah, wow. Okay.
So something must have happened in the brain of the animal that allows this kind of behavioral change. And so, when you play jazz, if you're playing jazz with a group of strangers, you still kind of have an understanding of how they're playing, and you adjust. In the end, it boils down to listening and responding. But over time, if you've played with the same group of people, maybe you have an understanding of their style. And that's how I feel too.
Well, have you ever separated a home unit and then brought them back together? Do they still respond the same way? Do they remember? Does it last that long? Because you said it forms, a stable hierarchy forms over time, and it lasts. Does it have an expiration point?
I guess after, it lasts, some studies have shown it takes about 10 days to form, and it lasts for up to a month or more. But there are times when the alpha mouse gets injured or dies, and then there is a new battle that unfolds among the closely ranked individuals, and then they so it's not like a stable thing. It's plastic. It changes based on the changing social environment. So one of the things that I'm interested in is the identity of an individual kind of remains the same. So your voice, your face would remain the same in my brain, but our relationship might change over time.
Yeah.
So are they differently represented in the brain? And but yet an element of this memory is flexible, but an element of it is kind of constant.
Yeah.
So how do brains track this?
Amazing. Wow. It's just amazing to me, because I think of all the different people I know in my life, from just a very distant acquaintance to, my closest family members, and just how amazing the brain is to keep track of all those things, right? And I mean, that's a lot of computing.
Yeah, that is true. Like we have limited understanding of how that is, represented in the brain. Like, so there are areas in the brain that are more like, I'm specifically interested in the hippocampus, which is a memory, it's known for memory and learning, and also the prefrontal cortex, which is another region. And in mice, it's been shown that some of the representations of rank arise there. So I'm interested in how these two areas interact with each other while a memory of a mouse forms, and the relationship kind of changes over time.
Well, let's put up the other slide of the brain.
Yeah.
And can you describe, I know the left, it's the large representation of a mouse brain.
Yes,
So
so you see a cartoon of a mouse and a small brain inside the cartoon of the mouse, and it's blown up. And then on the left side, you see the hippocampus in light green, and on the right side in dark green is the prefrontal cortex. And these are, there are however we figure out who we are to each other, and how these are just electrical activities and neuronal impulses that are occurring in these areas.
And it's definitely especially in those areas.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point, but that's about neuroscience. Like, the field is in infancy, so every time there's a new tool and you figure out new things about the brain, it's like just like certain technologies have helped us understand crime, like fingerprints. And there are new tools that emerge that give us new insight about the brain that kind of changes our views on how we
how you might experiment or form hypotheses.
Yeah. But it's a good starting point. And and then it's one of the questions that I'm excited about is, how do we find the model of another individual? Like, how do we understand who that individual is? When we have a conflict, we kind of understand the same individual in a different way. And then, when it gets resolved, there's a new, updated understanding of that individual, and that's happening throughout our lifetime. I find that a fascinating question to explore.
I mean, that's part of a big reason why I love this program so much, because the brain is just amazing. And I want to try a musical, kind of a game, but I'm going to play two pieces that are similar in style. And one of them, well, especially for the jazz fan, they'll probably know the song. And I think I would love you to just pay attention to how you react and how you listen to the song, and does your attention differ? Okay, so I'll tell you what the songs are after, but I'll play two songs in a row, and here we go. here's the second song. So just thank you. Maybe, did anybody know what the first song was? Anybody recognize the second song?
Yes, My Funny Valentine.
Yeah, so did you find you listened a different way? Did it affect how you heard the song? I would love to hear want to describe it for us?
So for me, the first song that I had no reference for felt like an open landscape. And it was like peeking into a landscape of clouds and sunlight, very open and broad with a sense of lack of reference.
Yeah, okay.
In the second one, since I recognized the tune, there was a pleasure I experienced in knowing what was coming next, feeling a familiar feeling,
Yeah.
and then appreciating this kind of trajectories you were tracing that were deviating out of this mainstream that I knew.
Uh-huh.
And when you were going into these trajectories, I was waiting for you to come back.
I love
And
it.
so there was kind of a playful feeling.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so brilliant. Thank you.
That's
so,
great. Yeah.
so what's going on in the hippocampus?
Well, I'll try to attempt to answer that. I feel like, yeah, I think when I experience music, it's when I don't know anything, it's just random associations, you know, and it's like my childhood, my grandma, you know, days in Vienna when I was doing my PhD. And so the way it still, I think, tugs on memory, but it's different, you know, your memory, your autobiographical memory, right? But then there is the knowing something, right? Knowing, which is another, you know, maybe a different neuronal pattern of activity in, you know, the memory in the areas of the brain.
Because it includes your memory of your relationship with that song and
Yeah.
your previous experience of hearing that song too.
Exactly. So, but it's interesting because when I listen to music and, you know, like, so that the question of, you know, what did evoke to this open landscape? So imagination and thought, like, what's the essence of that? We're far from understanding, you know, where that arises. But yeah, there are parts
love
of the
that.
brain that,
We're still exploring.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Well, I want to share something about Rai. You know, I just met her, maybe 2 weeks ago, and she has a background in improv theater, which I think is so cool. And can you tell them how you became, like, how'd you get into that?
How did I get into, you know, it was a complete accident. So I was in Vienna for part of my PhD program, and I was having a really bad day, and I signed up for a theater class, for a amateur theater group that Vienna, you know, this institute had, and because I used to do theater back in India, where I'm originally from. And I thought it was going to be a Shakespearean play, completely scripted, and I ended up in the class, and it was just improv, and I had no idea where it was, but they had free beer, and I just kept coming back, and then I got really addicted, because improv is something, so firstly, it's a hobby that you can maintain, because you just have to show up for the classes. There is no practice, you just have to be attentive to life. And the neurosis of people around you that we all kind of have. And the other thing about it was, you know, we improvise every day in our lives. That's how we learn. You know, you've been improvising from the moment you were born. But how do you take something like that that's so basic and the brain does every day and make it into an art form? And that was something, you know, I don't know. And, you know, this is something I cannot study in the brain yet, but I can study it, you know, in this, you know, you can experience it as an art form. So.
Oh, I love that, because, you know, I thought I wanted to be a concert pianist, and so all the music I played I had to learn off of a page. And I remember when I first encountered jazz musicians, I was like, how do you play music without music? And then the whole act of improvising, I thought the goal was you have to play something completely original that's never been played before. And so I was totally stuck and frozen, and finally my teacher was like, hey, just play something, you know? And what I've come to learn is improvisation at its core is really a musical conversation.
Yeah.
You know, it's call and response. It's like how we learn. You inquire of your environment, you get information, question and answer, and you go from there.
Yeah.
So I want to try, she told me about these short form games that they play in improv theater. So we'd like to involve you guys. And there's a thing called the oracle, where you ask us a question and we answer, but each of us only get one word at a time.
Yeah. So we'll try.
So
you ask us a deep question about life and love, science, or something has been plaguing you for a while.
And we'll do our best.
And we do our best, yeah.
Can you take this?
Nobody.
Is it better to have loved and lost, or never to have loved at all?
Oof.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, just go ahead.
You go ahead. You go.
It
seems
difficult
because
I
love
okay.
And
I
think
thoughts
from
the
previous
life
relationships,
boyfriends.
That grammatically is not correct, right? I'm sorry, I'm joking. But we'll keep going. Boyfriends who
are
not
there
anymore.
I thought you were going to stop it after love.
Okay, let's try one more.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's really good. And we're going to go on until it's good.
No, let's try one more. Another question from this side of the ring.
What is your relationship with the unknown?
Oof. Okay.
Memories.
Thoughts.
Teach
Us.
when
we
face
difficulties,
unknown
fears,
challenges.
we'll call it.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to continue with more improv games, or do we have more science to share? What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. You guys have any questions?
About her research, or shy bunch?
You can
Okay.
play some music.
Okay,
Sure.
let's play some more music, and let's make this a musical conversation, but with music and words. Okay, so let me start. I'll play something, and then but somebody has to create a story or short. Or it doesn't have to be a story, but just something with words or with dance, if somebody wants to dance. And let's see what happens. Okay, thanks. Who's going to be our brave victim? Okay, Dr. Trishlan.
The mice scurry and sniff to figure out their place in life. The big one lumbers in. The meek one says, "Don't put me in that tube."
Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. Now, does somebody want to give me a set of sketch, a word? It can be anything, and I'll try and do something musical in response to that.
Different from what you played?
Yeah. I'm going to improvise, respond to what you say. You can share a thought, an experience, whatever you like. A dance.
Going with the mice.
Going with
Going with the mice.
The music evoked in me scurrying about, skipping about.
Okay.
You could have a little play in which there was the dominant mouse
Okay.
powerfully moving around.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay. Let me see what I can do with that.
Yeah,
that
sorry.
last song is by the great pianist Jerry Allen called Feed the Fire. So, okay, well, I think we have time to do, let's do that last thing where we're going to make Rai flex her improv theater chops.
All right, man.
So how would you like to start this?
Well, we could ask for a suggestion for any word at all, and Helen would play something, and I'll try to improvise with words. She's going to try and respond with music or play something, depending on your mood.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want suggestions
Yeah.
from the
Just
audience?
give us both of us one word. Do you want anything else?
Let's do 3 words, okay?
Okay.
One has to be a number,
Okay.
and one has to be a type of food.
All right.
How about that? And then the third word is totally up to you.
Okay.
Okay. We're waiting. Ethereal.
Ethereal. Okay.
Broccoli.
Broccoli.
Okay.
Ethereal broccoli.
And
Love
a
it.
number?
3.
3.
Okay. I'm a memory. I am 3,332 neurons spread all over the brain. Some in the piriform cortex, some in the hippocampus, some in the prefrontal cortex. But something has happened to me. It feels like a dream, but I woke up and I couldn't gather myself up. I couldn't gather myself up. When I tried to replay, parts of me felt like they bailed on me. I cried out to the neurons in the hippocampus and I couldn't hear anything. And then I got like nervous because, you know, I'm 3,320 3,300 neurons. And then suddenly something mysterious is happening to me and I don't know what. So here's me, I'll replay. My person's walking in the street. My person is being told to eat broccoli. And my person doesn't like broccoli. My person wants chicken nuggets. My person's really young. My person is just 5 years old. My person does not like broccoli. My person's traveling down 7th Avenue and 32nd Street, and my person refuses to go to a salad bar. My person's mother is not having it. She is not having it. She just regretting this moment of probably having a child. I don't know. My person looks at a man having chicken nuggets. My person's really sad. That's the memory. That's me. I replayed, and I feel like I am. Part of me wants to feel. Parts of me, parts of us. We are a memory. We are a memory. I am a color of. It's green. Maybe it's green. Okay, I'll replay. I'm a memory. My person is walking down 4th Avenue. No, it's 6th Avenue. No. It's okay. My person's walking down 11th Avenue in Pennsylvania, New York City. My person's 5 years old. My person's 20 years old. My person is 20 years old. She doesn't like broccoli. My person, okay, I have to go to the jury. I have to say I am important. You can't just erase me like that. It's an important memory because well, I should exist, that's it. I mean, I think the brain's trying to destroy me, and I don't like it, because I'm important. It's a memory of a person, my person walking down a street and not wanting to have broccoli. It's an important moment in my person's life. She doesn't want to have broccoli. Why is it important? I don't know. She'll probably figure it out. Well, do all memories have to be important to exist? I'm pretty important. I feel like I don't exist anymore. It was a good existence. It was brief, or maybe it was not. Do memories really get erased, or do they stay somewhere? Maybe I'll come back one day.
Ethereal.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again for Jazz on the Brain, National Jazz Museum in Harlem. My name is Helen Sung. This is Dr. Rai Sen. It's been such a pleasure visiting with you, and we hope you'll tune in for future episodes. Until then, please take good care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
All right.